the fact that we're perfect strangers. He doesn't know me. I mean, for all this guy knows, I'm a psychopath in the trunk full of chainsaws.
It's time to get back to the Rob Dibble Show.
Back on the Rob Dibble Show with one of our favorite guests, Dom Amore from the Hartford Courant. Covers pretty much everything sports around here. Of course, UCONN sports. Joins us on the Rob Dibble Show hotline. And Dom, how are you, sir?
Hey, Dom.
Great, guys. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Fantastic. So when did you find out Ray Allen was going back to school to get his degree? Like most of us, when he was walking the graduation line?
Actually, it was something of a secret, but someone who works for us taking pictures, photographer, had heard it and tipped us off on it, and we were able to get our beat writer, Joe Arruda, out there, and he did a terrific job, and I was very proud of the job he did.
How fabulous is that, though, for not only the university, but for Ray Allen to go back and do that?
Well, it sets a wonderful example, not only for his fans or young people, his family, but sets a wonderful example for kids who are in school now, the current players, that it is important. It emphasizes that it is important to finish your schooling and get your degree. It matters. And to him, strictly, I would think a pride thing. He's certainly not going to go put it on a resume and look for a job. I don't think he needs to do that. But just the pride and ownership of that is something very special. And, I think it's a wonderful thing for him and a wonderful example that he's setting.
I need your help, Dom. Everybody around here is freaking out that UConn men's basketball is going to be horrible next year with everybody going to the NBA and everybody transferring. I'm like, wait a second. The guys that are coming in could be starting anywhere in the country. We're going to be right back in the top 25. Back me up on this, Dom.
Oh, you're 1,000% right. UConn is. I was saying, in fact, to Joe yesterday, Joe Arruda, that this is the only beat in the country where a walk-on transferring becomes a big story, right?
Yeah.
Emmett Henry moving on. But no, they've got a great recruiting class coming in, and this is why this is what you go out and recruit for, to have guys like this come in and fill spots. But, I think there's a pretty good chance that Newton's going to be back, and Jackson I don't think is gone by any stretch. And, you lost two players that you anticipated you were going to lose. And, once things shake out and they know what roles they have to offer, they should be able to do quite well in the transfer portal with, picking up someone to replace a Joey Calcaterra, that role, picking up someone to replace a Naheem Aline, that role. So, I would expect them to be in the top 25, if not in the top 10 at the start of the season, and be in the hunt again. Repeating is difficult. And the year after a championship is always difficult, but I don't expect them to fall off the map by any stretch of the imagination.
Dan Hurley and the team have been making the rounds, whether it's throwing out the first pitch at a Met game or, go to the stock exchange. He was at Dunkin' Donuts yesterday. He was working the window. But you and I both know you got to win championships, or you got to be involved in going deep into March around here to get that kind of respect and love. Your thoughts on just the offseason for Dan Hurley and the way that now the fans have warmed up to how good of a job he's done here?
Yeah, I guess we're not talking about firing him or he can't win close games or any of that stuff anymore, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's okay that he didn't play the two big guys together. That worked out all right.
They haven't lost a game next year though. Wait till they lose a game in 2024.
Yeah, exactly. I know, but it's good to. I really feel like he matured and grew up as a coach over the last month or two. That he I don't want to say he relaxed, but I think he kind of settled down a little bit, and that I think was translated to his team. I think they settled down and played a more mature brand of basketball in March, and which is why they won. And I think he's really carried the off-season ceremonies that go with winning with a lot of grace and a lot of class. So I think it's just he was a winner, and he's carried himself like a winner ever since. And he's getting out, doing some charity work in the community, which as his predecessors did as well. And it would have been kind of funny if someone with a a basketball officiating background went through that drive-through at Dunkin' Donuts, and maybe had Dan screw up the order, and he could.
Oh my God, that would have been great.
So bad, yeah, that would have been great. But he's done a great job with all of that, and again, one thing you have to do, the old cliche, make hay while the sun shines. The spotlight's on UConn men's basketball right now, and this is the time to put your best foot forward and to grow your brand and get your brand out there, and capitalize on this momentum with more and more by stacking more and better recruiting classes one on top of the other. That's what Jim Calhoun did such a great job at, and that's what didn't work out for Kevin Ollie 10 years ago. So I think Dan Hurley's doing all the right things to keep his program out front and center.
There's another program at UConn right now in the top 10 in the nation, that Hook C, the UConn baseball program, right now at number 9 with the big sweep this weekend over Seton Hall. What do you think their chances are hosting a regional, Dom? Now, you know the whole landscape. Boston College is really good. That's kind of who they're neck and neck with in this region. Northeastern's really good in the CAA. If they win that conference, they might have an argument. But what do you think of them hosting and where they're going to host if they do?
Well, I think they have a good chance. I think they have to run the table more than likely, which would be a 3-game sweep at Creighton. That would be the tough part of it. But I don't think the NCAAs are pretty consistent in going by the RPI. So if Boston College and UConn are both in the top 16, I think then they'll both host. If one of them is in and one of them is out, then Boston College hosts, and maybe UConn goes there as a number 2. But I think if they keep doing what they're doing, you got to get a little help. The teams that they beat earlier in the year, like Hawaii and FAU and Ohio State, have to stockpile some more wins. That would help their RPI. But I think their chances are pretty good, and I think their intention would be to put in a bid to host it at their new ballpark. I think they could the temporary structures that you would need for media and maybe a few more fans would do, and then there's plenty of room out there for for fans to sit on the berms or the grassy areas and down the right field line and in the outfield. So I think there would be, and there's parking. I think it would be an adequate place for them and a great place for them to host a regional. That's why they built it, to be able to host a regional. So I think that's where it would be. And you just got to keep looking at that RPI and hope that UConn, A, doesn't lose any games, and B, that if they win games, their RPI doesn't slip because their strength of schedule. You wish there was a better way to do it, but strength of schedule has to matter, and RPI is the way they do it.
Talking to Dom Amore from the Hartford Courant. All right, UConn, they're going into the Big East Championship, and they start the tournament tomorrow, 33-13. They've been really streaky and really good as of late. They lost a couple of games recently, but they've had a really good April and into May. Talk about the UConn women's softball team.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, first of all, they've got a heck of a coach. When you start talking about the great coaching hires that David Benedict has made, Laura Valentino should be right in that conversation because she's done a terrific job. I think she's something like they've won over 70% of their games since she's been the coach, and she really turned that program around. They hadn't had a winning season in quite a while, and they've had nothing but winning seasons since she's been there. They've fallen a little short in the Big East tournaments that they've played. But here they're home again, and I think they've been the best team in the league all year. They won the regular season title, and I think they're going to have a great chance to come out of it. They're not in that large territory, though. It's a one-bid league, and in softball, they're going to have to win the tournament to go to the NCAA tournament. But they have a lot of talent, a lot of local talent, and a lot of experienced talent. I wrote about their center fielder, Asia James, who has started every game for more than 4 years there, 160-something games in a row in center field. They play great defense. They've got solid pitching. And, if they execute, push a few, that's a very different game than what we're usually talking about, the way you have to kind of slap the ball and bunt and all those things, the small ball. But if they execute that stuff well and again, the coach really, really stresses the fundamentals, I think they have a great chance to come out of that and be yet another UConn team that goes to an NCAA tournament.
What's transferring like in that sport? It feels like in football, it's a whole nother part of recruiting. Men's basketball, it's gosh, you better get with it or you're going to be left behind. Women's basketball now, I feel like every week I got a new story to cover on women's basketball transfers.
Yeah.
In softball, like you're saying, if this group, especially those freshmen, the battery of that young twin set of the pitcher and the catcher can stay around for 4 years, this team's going to be dynamite. But is that a thing in softball where girls will transfer from school to school like the boys in baseball and these other sports?
It is. It is. You haven't quite seen the influx at UConn that you've seen in other places or other sports at UConn. UConn's been pretty stable through these last 4 years. The players are really bought in to Laura Valentino's system when she came in, her approach, and they've stayed. Not many have transferred out, I don't believe, and not a lot have transferred in. But I think it's a matter of time before you start seeing more transfers there, because it's inevitable. It's an inevitable part of the college game and everywhere. But you're right, and you haven't seen what you've seen in other sports at UConn, but I think you will. And when you do, knowing their coaches, they'll be on top of it, and they'll be ready to take advantage. You know what Bill Parcells used to say: you've got to use all the avenues of player procurement. And that's going to be as true in softball as anything else. Just hasn't been up to this point.
Are we a little shocked that the Yankees are in last place and the Mets are a game under 500 at 17 and 18, about 35, 36 games in so far?
Well, much more with the Mets than the Yankees. The Yankees, maybe another team could have gone into the offseason and said, well, we won 100 games. Let's not overreact to one bad week. But that was not the situation with the Yankees. They played 500 or barely 500 the entire second half of the season. They needed some major renovations, and they really didn't do it. They're pretty much running it back with the same team that they were around 500 the whole second half of last year. So it's not a surprise to me that they're struggling. Obviously, unlike other years where they've gotten off to a sluggish start, somebody has kind of run away and hidden, namely Tampa Bay. You have to figure that they'll come back to the pack the way the Yankees came back to the pack last year, but not to that degree. But no, I'm not shocked that the Yankees are struggling. They always have a lot of injuries, and they have a lot of injuries again. I wouldn't write them off as far as, getting a playoff spot. But they're not, I don't see this as a 100-win team or a team that is a threat to win it all unless they get Rodon back and he's as good as they thought. That seems to be a dicey at best picture right now as well. So, no, I'm not surprised by the Yankees. The Mets, a lot of their hopes ride on a couple of aces who are 40 years old. So, that I suppose you have to expect that they may struggle. Very surprised that their offense is struggling the way it has, but I suspect that they'll turn it around and be fine. I think they'll be a playoff team. But, I'm not surprised over what the Yankees are doing. And, the Red Sox will get them in the conversation, too. Never write them off because they know how to evaluate players. They know how to evaluate players for the long term, and they're not afraid to make unpopular decisions and take their lumps in the short run. So I think you're starting to see them, again, players, maybe a team that didn't look so good on paper looks a lot better now. So, yeah, I'm a little surprised by some of what I've seen, but not all of it. I think some of it you could have seen coming.
A pleasant surprise, I would say, for people around here in the AL East, those Baltimore Orioles, and looking at just some of their losses that they've had, it's against really good teams. I mean, in recent history, they've lost the last three, two against Atlanta, one against a really hot Shane McClanahan, who's starting the year off awesome for the Tampa Bay Rays. Are they for real, though? Can they beat the bigger teams of this league, or are they just too young and they got a couple more years before they're ready?
I'll tell you what, they remind me a lot of Houston when maybe 7 or 8 years ago when Houston was starting to really make its run. They had a lot of bad years in a row, but they stockpiled a lot of draft picks. Many of those draft picks, have worked out quite well and are only getting better. They knocked on the door last year. They played very well last year, very nearly grabbed a playoff spot. So, yeah, I see them as being a team that's ready to take the next step. And are they going to catch Tampa? Probably not. But I could very easily see them holding off, the Yankees and Red Sox, maybe even the Blue Jays behind them, getting a playoff spot. They're very good. And the thing about them is they have some local guys in their organization I wrote about at the managing and coaching level. They talk about a, quote, Oriole way. You know, they train they develop their players with a singular, consistent approach to hitting, to pitching, to defense, to fundamentals. And you're seeing that pay off. They play a very good brand of baseball. So no, I think they're definitely for real. They're definitely contenders in my opinion.
You're the best, Dom. Thank you so much, sir, and we will talk to you soon.
Guys, a pleasure. Always love talking to you guys. Have a good day.
Thank you,
Dom Amore, everybody. Check out HartfordCurrent.com for his latest stories. We'll take a quick break, come back to First Dibs question of the day, brought to you by Trantolo.